Every test has a power, so also understand the concept of a power. The probability of rejecting a false null hypothesis is called power of a test, and that is represented by 1 minus beta, where beta is my type 2 error. Okay, do we have a relation between power of a test and the sample size n and power of test? Purushottam, there is one Sushmita. Please unmute that.
Yes, sir. She is not panelist. She can talk.
Huh?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I'm there, sir.
Okay. Sushmita, tell me what is the relationship between the sample size and the power of a test?
Sample size and power of a test. If the sample size is
Easy,
bigger,
right?
then the
Power of test increases.
yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes,
So
sir.
that means that as a researcher, we should have a larger sample size. If
Yes,
we
sir.
have it, my power of test increases. Okay.
Yes, sir. Yes.
So you can see as the sample size increasing, the power of the test is increasing. But there is a caution in it. You cannot go a very large sample, say 10,000, 1 lakh, 10 lakhs. If you go for such a bigger and bigger sample size, then you will find you will not get that commensurate advantage of increase in power, because as sample size increases, power of course increases, but increases at a decreasing rate. Okay, Sushmita, unmute.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes. Thank you, sir.
How do we decide whether a null is to be accepted or rejected? We have different ways to do that. One, on the basis of the critical value, we compare our test statistics with the critical value and then decide whether the null is to be accepted or rejected. So for example, if alpha is 5% two-tailed test, we are using Z statistics, then we will find 1.96 is the critical value. If my Z is coming more than, if my Z is say 2.43, which is more than 1.96, I should reject my null hypothesis. Okay, that's one way of deciding accepting or rejecting null hypothesis. Another way of accepting and rejecting null hypothesis is the probability value or the p-value which we have. Okay, so now let's understand the concept of the probability value and the p-value. Okay, the probability value is the probability of observing a sample outcome even more extreme than the observed outcome when the null is true. Please understand and mind these words. The sample outcome even more extreme than the observed value when the null hypothesis is true. What does it mean? If we have a null area like this, extreme value is p my tail value. That means the p-value is always my tail probability values. Please understand that. The smaller the p-value, the smaller are the chances that variations are caused by chance and random. That means variations are truly significant and therefore we should reject our null hypothesis. That means if smaller the p-value, then we should reject our null hypothesis. That means if p-value is less than my level of significance, then we should reject our null hypothesis. Otherwise, we should accept our null hypothesis. P-value is also called observed level of significance. It provides an alternative way to decide a null hypothesis is to be accepted or rejected. And most of the softwares you will find are giving you the probability value, and you decide on the basis of your level of significance whether null is to be accepted or to be rejected. Okay, so please understand that p-value indicates the probability that results are due to the sampling error or chance, and it is always at the tail. And please understand, if p is less than alpha, then we must reject null hypothesis. Otherwise, we should accept null hypothesis. Is that clear? Is it okay? Any question? Any doubt? Any query, any doubt about it? Okay, so once it is clear, now let's proceed further. So far, we have been building, preparing ourselves for the necessary backdrop to take forward a solid move for understanding hypothesis testing. Okay, so if you have any doubt, any questions before we proceed further, we can move. Otherwise, we can move forward. Okay, there is a question that what if the p-value is exactly equal to the alpha. So that's a bordering case. Depending upon what theory is suggesting, you may accept null hypothesis. But it's a very, very rare incidence that probability value is exactly equal to level of significance, which I think very, very rare. But I suggest that even if it is equal, then you can go for accepting your null hypothesis. There is a question that how can we minimize type 2 error, that is beta. Beta can be reduced by taking larger sample size for a given alpha. Okay? Okay, there is a request that how do we understand the probability value? Friends, you must understand something. There is a threshold that distinguish difference between the random behavior and significant. Please understand it. So for example, again, I take that simple example, mean is equal to 60. Alternatively, mean is not equal to 60. Suppose my actual mean, the sample mean is coming to be 60.01. Now, is it a significant difference, or is it because of the fact that we have taken a sample and sampling is creating that difference? If it is due to sampling reason, we say that it's because of the randomness. I go on increasing 61, 62, 70, 100. You will find that there is a limit for randomness, there is a limit for this variation due to the sampling. And after that, the difference is so significant that we can assume that our null hypothesis is not the correct hypothesis, and we should reject that null hypothesis value. Is that clear? Now, having understood it, now let's look at the p-value. This is my alpha, 5%. And let's assume that we are talking about Z statistics, mean 0, 5% level, two-tail, I'm just taking two-tail 1.96. Suppose my Z is coming to be 2.30. That Z will be somewhere here. Then this area will be called my probability value. So probability value is the tail probability corresponding to the actual value of the statistics which we got from our sample. Okay, is that clear? And that the smaller is it, that means we have more significant differences and we must reject our null hypothesis. Is that clear? Right, good. Then I have certain questions. What is p-value? And I hope we are able to discuss it. How is it different from critical value? तिवारी अब तो बोल दो, चुप नहीं रहना. What is the difference between the probability value and critical value? Anjali Chandra. Okay, many of you have given right answers. For example, Monica Seni. Oh, Monica. Monica, are you there? Monica is saying that critical value is the value which we get from table. And p-value is the probability value which we get from, the value which we get from the tail area of the given statistics which have calculated from our sample data. Okay, so for example, two-tail test, Z statistics 1.96, 5% level of significance. This is my critical value, 1.96. Okay, but probability value will come from your sample information, and that too corresponding to tail probability. Okay, right? Then another thing which we have to also understand and appreciate, what is the difference between the statistically significant results and practically significant results. Sushmita, I would like to react. I want to see your reaction to this question. It's very important for all the researchers to appreciate difference between statistically significant results and practically significant results.
Sir, I'll try to guess. Statistically significant result is something which we have proven using statistics.
Okay.
For example, t-test or whatever,
Right.
any statistics.
Right.
Practically significant is, I'm hearing for the first time, practically significant is maybe we assume that it could be significant, or I don't know, sir.
Yes, sir.
Practical.
I think
Monica Seni. Yes, Purushottam, please.
Monica Sani?
Purushottam,
Yes, sir.
trying to say something?
Regarding, sir?
sir,
This
I was saying,
question.
I was saying Practically significant means there's a theory which supports the significance over there.
Okay. I'll give you one example. Suppose we are looking for determinants of capital structure, right? Which is ratio between debt and equity. And we run regression, and one of the independent variable is P ratio. And the value of the coefficient is coming to be 0.00006, and P value is 0.0. Okay, so Sushmita, P value says that this is statistically significant, has a positive impact on the capital structure.
Yes, sir.
Okay, but look at the magnitude. 0.0006. That means if you increase your P ratio by 1 unit, or debt equity ratio is going to be changed by 0.0006, which is meaningless, which is of no practical significance.
Okay.
Is that clear?
Yes, sir. Yes,
So
sir.
whatever results you are getting, you must prove that they are of some practical consequence, because that is what policymakers and the practitioners are going to use. Something which is statistically significant and not, uh, practically significant, that's not relevant for the users. Let me take you another example. Suppose we are trying to check impact of a medicine on the BP level of the paper, okay? And we find the results are significant. But BP is reduced by 0.000.1. That may not be of practical significance, though statistically it is coming to be significant.
Sir,
So,
one observation I would like to add here,
right.
which I observed during my data analysis. Such low value of coefficient of beta, we observe if there is a drastic change in the scale of the variables which are measured. For example, the dependent variable is a fraction.
Tiwari, it's okay. You must understand your variables and you must understand your theory.
Right, sir.
Okay. Then you can say whether it is of practical significance or not. In my
Right,
example, debt equity ratio is a ratio. P ratio is also a ratio. Okay. Both are ratios. So as a researcher, you have to take a call. What is statistically significant may not be practically significant. Some of you said that practical significance is of qualitative nature. Of course, yes, you have to look at beyond numbers and try to come out with some qualitative judgment. Another question is, can we say that practically significant is one that can be generalized? Okay. Normally, yes, I can say, but something which you can generalize, okay, and may not be practically significant unless and until it is supported by necessary theoretical background. So you have to be careful about it. A lot of judgment, wisdom you have to use, your experience as a researcher, you have to use to take a final call on practically significant things. So having discussed this, let's move to our main agenda of hypothesis testing. For every hypothesis testing problem, we require a test that may be a parametric test and a non-parametric test. Let's understand what is a parametric test. The parametric test is a test whose model requires and specifies certain conditions about the parameters of the population from which the sample is drawn. Friends, please remember, anything which you estimate from population, we call it parameter. anything that we estimate by using sample, that is called statistics. So if you make any assumption about population and its parameter, the test is called parametric test. Example, assumption about normal probability distribution, assumption that population standard deviation is known. If you make such kind of assumptions, then you are making use of a test which is called a parametric test. These tests are powerful and strong in their assertions and usually applicable when data is at interval scale or ratio scale. And the theory and the literature related to parametric tests is very rich and highly developed. On the other hand, non-parametric tests are called a distribution-free tests. They make no assumption about population and its parameters. They are the tests whose model does not specify conditions and assumptions about the parameters or the population. That means they lack parameters. And that's why they are called non-parametric tests. Okay. These are widely used for nominal and ordinal data where no parametric tests are available at all. However, they can also be used for ratio or interval scale data as well when assumptions of parametric tests are not satisfied. Okay. Non-parametric tests are not very powerful and strong their assertions, and primarily because when we conduct some non-parametric tests, we convert data into ranks, differences, signs, etc., and that results into loss of information, and that make these tests not very powerful. These tests are usually convert data into ranks, signs, and thereby may lose some important information, and that's why they are not very powerful. Let's see where we should apply which type of test. Parametric test is used when the data is measured at a scale level and assumptions are true. These two together should be satisfied. If one of them is satisfied, then we don't use parametric test. It should be scale level as well as the necessary assumptions are true. When we use the parametric test, scale level, and when the assumptions about specific parametric tests are not true. Is it okay? Right. Another important thing we should remember while doing hypothesis testing, we have a concept of what is called related samples and unrelated samples. Okay. Related samples are defined as those where the observations in one has some relation or influence on the other sample. Like example, respondent 1, we have data before training and after training. So such kind of samples are called related samples. Okay. Suppose we have two samples, sample of male and a sample of female, and you will find whosoever is in male cannot be in female. Both are independent of each other. Such kind of samples are called unrelated samples. Okay. So friends, when you are performing hypothesis testing, and you are having two or more samples, you must understand whether they are related samples or unrelated samples. Accordingly, you must apply the appropriate test. Normally, related samples are related to same respondent, same company, for example, right? Same respondents, right? And after that's a typical example of related samples. And unrelated samples are independent, where you will find samples have nothing common. One is having no influence on the other. How do we visualize it in our SPSS? Let's have a look at that. If you have data, same respondent, right? Yeah, like this. Then we visualize them as a related sample. But when you visualize them as like this, then we say at a unrelated sample. So you have senior managers, and so on. And SPSS demands a grouping variable in order to identify unrelated samples. Okay, so please understand that. Another important point, please, I'm repeating it. Another important point is how related samples and unrelated samples are treated. That also differs from software to software. So before you apply related and unrelated sample test, see how software asks you to design that particular data. Okay. Okay, Monica, you are asking me what to do with P probability value equal to alpha. I already answered it, but accept your null hypothesis in that case, provided you strongly believe that null is to be rejected. Okay. Another question which I am getting is, what are the parametric tests? Friends, we are going to study it as we proceed further, and I will tell you what are the parametric tests which are available to us. Okay. There is a request, how do we see the difference between related and unrelated samples? Okay, I give you an example of first unrelated samples. If we are making samples on the basis of gender, okay, on the basis of designation, on the basis of background, you will find that they are all unrelated. Male, female, nothing relationship. Okay, assistant professor, associate professor, professor, unrelated, designation. Background, rural, semi-urban, urban, okay, no relation, unrelated. Okay, if you find you can make samples which are mutually exclusive, nothing common, we call them as unrelated. If there are commonalities, okay, then we say they are related. Commonalities in terms of same respondent, same company, or a firm, then we say they are related. Is that clear? Okay, there is one question which is coming from Dr. Dimple Khosla is asking, should we take decision on the basis of the critical values or the probability values? You can take decision on the basis of any one of them. Both will give the same result. However, most of the softwares are throwing probability value. So normally we take decisions on the basis of probability values. But if you want, you can take decisions on the basis of critical values as well. There is another interesting question which is coming from Savita, that if we do not know population, then how can we make assumptions? So we do not know, that's why we are making assumptions. If you know, nobody can make assumptions about reality. Assumptions are made because we do not know the reality. Please understand that. However, you can test your assumptions, and if you find that your assumptions are not true, then you have to go for non-parametric tests. Okay? Another question is, if we are going for strata based sampling, then the each strata which we are considering is considered to be unrelated or related. It depends upon how we are processing. If you want to process, say, mean from strata 1 is equal to mean of strata 2, then yes, you can say they are unrelated. Okay? Right? So let's see which test for what purpose we use. Questioners are asking what should be the minimum value of the beta to say it is of practical significance or not. It depends upon two things: your research issues, the theory, and the scale of the variables which you're using. Accordingly, you decide the, what should be the practical significant value of the beta. Okay, please understand we will be using only parametric tests, and that too for interval scale data. Okay. So let's go for scale data. If we have one sample, and friends, right now I'm giving you the names and we will do the practical of it after the break. And if we are going for the variation test, we should go for chi-square test. If it is a central tendency test, then you can make use of Z-test or t-test. Okay, certain points about Z-test. In that regard, you have to understand what is called central limit theorem. It says the sampling distribution of sample mean is approximately normal for sufficiently large sample size. So as your sample size increases, the sampling distribution of the mean will tends to a normal probability distribution. That what central limit theorem says. Okay. So the larger the sample size, the more closely the sampling distribution of sample mean will resemble a normal probability distribution. Now question is how large is large? If population is normal, then you need not worry about it. Any sample size which you take, the distribution will also be normal distribution. If the population is approximately symmetric, even a small sample size will give you a normal probability distribution. When the population is skewed, the sample size must be at least 30 before the sampling distribution of X bar becomes approximately normal. Please remember, it's a thumb rule and not a scientific one. But you must try to keep larger sample if you really want to make use of central limit theorem, so that you can make use of statistics. There is a question now, which test we should use, Z as or the T. Normally you will find we as a researcher don't use Z statistics, we use T statistics. There are two important reasons behind it. One, to use Z, we must know population standard deviation, which is not normally available to us. T is based on sample, you can see the sample standard deviation. That's one reason. Second reason is T is to converge if we have a large sample. So always you take the test, whether it's a small sample or a large sample. If it's a large sample, it is as good as Z, and because of this assumption. Not the statistic, it will always give you the statistic, even if you have a very large sample. Okay. If the two samples are they are related, then you go for t-test. If they are unrelated, you can go for t-test for difference a means and proportions. If it is a variation test, you go for test. If it is multiple samples, okay, then if it is equality of variance, if it is a quality of variance, you go for 11.
सर आवाज ना क्रैक हो रही है सर बहुत ज्यादा.
मैं ब्रेक लेता हूँ, फिर ब्रेक में बात करते हैं, ठीक है?
जी सर.
Okay, so before we actually do some practical problems, let's take a break, and after the break we will come back and continue with our discussion. Okay.
Oh.
In the meantime, if you have any questions, you can put it on the chat. I will love to answer those questions.
Sir, we'll have the questions now or when we resume the session, sir?
What?
Sir, we can have the questions now or when we
Let
resume
me
the
see
session?
if we get okay, many queries are coming about Z tests and T test, and asking me to repeat the last two slides. The two samples, if we have, they're related, we use what is called a pair T test. If they're unrelated, you can use difference of means test, or you can have T statistics or Z statistics. If it is equality of variances, then we go for F test. If it is more than two samples, then if it is equality of means, we use analysis of variance. If it is equality of variances, we use Levin's test. Another question which is being asked about Z versus T. Okay. Z is presuming that we know the population standard deviation. It assumes that. But T does not assume population standard deviation. It can work on standard deviation of the sample. And since normally we do not know the population standard deviation, we prefer to use T statistics. Another reason for using T statistic is T converges to Z as a sample. So for a larger sample, it doesn't make a difference whether you use T statistics or Z statistics, as both are giving you the same results. However, for a small one, you should always use the statistics. Okay, is that difference clear? Okay, sir. Anjali, we can take a break now.
Okay, sir. We resume the session again at 12 o'clock, sir. And really, sir, we are thankful for whatever is the discussion that has been going on till this end. And I think a lot of questions are there. Majority are related to one issue only that you have answered. Still, any questions that,
Can
yeah,
put them
still,
in the chat box.
yeah, still if there is certain queries or concise queries, we'll take it up when we start the next session, and we come back at 12 o'clock. Thank you, sir. I request all the participants to continue to log in only. When we resume the session, this only login link is what is going to work. And I'm requesting everybody not to log out, just continue with this. Thank you. वॉल्यूम थोड़ा हल्का कर दो म्यूजिक का.
to use a parametric test. We have to use parametric test when the data is scale data and assumptions of that particular test is satisfied. If the data is not a scale, you cannot use a parametric test. If the assumptions are not true, then you cannot use your parametric test. Okay, is that clear? Any other question? Any other doubt? Anybody else? Okay, so friends, I'm not getting any questions, so let's start with it. Okay, so there is a question from Gitanjali Malhotra. How do we know whether the population is normally distributed or not? Okay. Yes, we do not have the population data, so we cannot test about population, but we have the sample data, and we believe that sample data will indicate the characteristics of the underlying population. So we've performed tests on the sample data, and on that basis, we are making inferences about population. I think, Gitanjali, is that clear to you? Dipali is also asking, is population is infinite, so we cannot use parametric test. That's not correct. Even if the population is infinite, doesn't matter. Scale data assumptions are true. You can go ahead with the use of your parametric tests. Okay. Right. So, friends, now let's move further and see how do we practice it. Can we say that student score marks in mathematics than that of computer science? So I'm sharing with you data, and data is in the Excel file, and we will be using Excel file for doing this particular test. Okay. So we got the marks in maths and computer science. Are the differences we observe, are they statistically different, or is it because of the fact that they are differing because of the sampling distribution or the sampling because of the sample information? Okay, so friends, what will be the null hypothesis in this case? What is the nature of the data? How many samples? Which test we have to use? Revise in your mind all these issues. Okay, and I want your reaction to that. Shilpi is asking if hypothesis is rejected at 5%, is it rejected at 1% level? No, it's other way around. Something rejected at 1% level will mean it is rejected also at 5%, not the other way around. Okay, let's see what is the null hypothesis we have. Null hypothesis is mean marks of math is equal to mean marks of computer science. Alternatively, they are not equal. So these are the hypotheses which we have for this. Nature of the data is scale data. How many samples? We have 2 samples, maths and computer science. Are they related or unrelated? Think in your mind. I'm not going to answer this question. We will answer this question later on. And accordingly, we have to decide which test we have to use. Okay? But before that, Sushmita, I have a specific question to you. Are you seeing these numbers?
Yes, I can see the numbers.
What are they?
0.99,
No, it's
sorry,
not
9999
Huh.
59.
Right. So some students have scored 99 marks in papers. How should we treat them?
So it is a related sample.
Oh, no, I'm not asking that question right now. We will discuss it later. How do we treat these observations? Are they outliers?
There is a outlier.
Okay. Should we remove them from our analysis?
I think outliers need to be treated. We
What do you
can
mean by
remove or we can remove. So we can remove.
Okay. Okay. But don't you think it's a reality?
It is a
can
reality,
score-
sir. Yes, sir, it can be.
Getting 99% marks by some students, that may be a reality.
Yes,
And
sir.
if it is a reality, then we should not ignore it and we should take care of it.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So
Yes, sir.
friends, please understand a discussion. All outliers are not irrelevant. You have to understand the underlying reality. What looks to be an outlier may be a reality. If it is a reality, then it should not be thrown out from the analysis. However, we may do something about them, but we should not throw them from the analysis. Okay. Purushottam, is chat on or off?
It is on,
It is.
sir.
Okay. Because I'm not getting any questions. Purushottam, still people are saying voice is low. I don't know why.
No, it is full, sir. Your voice is perfectly audible to me, sir.
Okay. Tiwari, tell me, is it a related sample test or independent sample test?
So these two are independent samples. A related sample is one when there is some commonality. So if it is after before, that kind of situation is related sample. These two are unrelated. If an
Sushmita,
observation has,
agreed. Hold on.
No.
Sushmita, they are unrelated tests because we believe that a student who is scoring marks in maths has nothing to do with scoring marks in computer science.
Okay, sir.
So there is no relation between them. I may be good in maths, I may not be good in computer science. Okay, that's the assumption we are making.
Okay.
So if we
Not
believe
the same
that,
set of students, so
doesn't matter, doesn't matter.
Okay, fine, sir.
Okay, but they are independent in the sense that one has no relation with the marks of the other.
Okay, fine,
So
sir.
they are to be considered as independent tests. So we have to use 2 sample independent t-test. This is my null hypothesis, scale data, 2 sample, unrelated sample, and 2 sample tests we have to use it.